Emily, you're on mute.
And we're live. Hello. Hi, guys. I would like to welcome all of our North Texas LibCamp people to our keynote session. We have Sarah Milnowski with us.
Hi.
And Emily Lockhart. We are super excited for them to join us. Just a couple of housekeeping things before we get started. We are going to have a wrap-up session at the end of our keynote, so don't go away after we're done with our authors. Stick around till the end because we have some great door prizes and want to wrap up our day with you. But in the meantime, I would like to kick off our keynote and introduce you to our authors. Emily Jenkins, aka E. Lockhart, writes picture books, young middle grade under Jenkins, Emily Jenkins, and novels for teenagers under E. Lockhart. Together with Sarah Mlynowski and Lauren Myracle, she writes the Upside Down Magic series, which is now a movie on Disney+. Her books for elementary age readers include Brave Red, Smart Frog, A New Book of Old Tales, Boys Go Out, the Sydney Taylor Award-winning All of a Kind Family Hanukkah, and the upcoming Harry versus the First 100 Days of School. Books for teenagers include Genuine Fraud, Again, Again, and the #1 New York Times bestselling We Were Liars. The Disreputable History of Frankie Lawbanks was a Prince Honor book and a National Book Award finalist. Find her at emilyjenkins.com and emilylockhart.com. And now I want to introduce you to Sarah Milnowski. She is a New York Times bestselling author of over 40 novels for teens, tweens, and adults, including the Whatever After series, Bras and Broomsticks, Give Me a Call, and Just a Boy and a Girl in a Little Canoe. Sarah's books have sold over 10 million copies around the world and have been published in 30 countries. Sarah was born in Montreal, but now lives in Los Angeles with her family. You can find her everywhere at Sarah Milnowski, and you can check out their author websites. We've linked them and a list of their books and all of their educator guides that are available to us on our website. It's a bit.ly/NTX-LibCamp. I'm going to turn it over to Sarah and Emily and let them get started. If you have questions, you can drop them in the chat, and if we have time, we will add those in at the end.
Hello.
Thank you. Hi. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Emily. Hi, librarians. We're both really, really happy to be here. And if we were all live in North Texas, we would do this keynote, and then we would head to like a charming bar in the conference hotel, and we would order champagne cocktails, and then we would wait for you librarians to arrive. And when you did, we would dish about books, and we would ask you questions about what your students are loving this year. And we would want to hear about your Newbery reading challenges and the way you're using YA in the classrooms and your favorite picture book read alouds. And then we would ask about your cool nail art and your shoes. Yes, you male identified librarians too. We want to hear about all the shoes and all the more. But that is not happening this year. So Sarah and I decided that we would try as best we could to make this keynote feel like a chat between friends, because the two of us are friends, and that you people should imagine yourselves coming up to where we are in this hotel bar and ordering a coffee or a cocktail or a nutritious green drink or whatever it is you like and sitting down with us. So welcome to our table.
Yay! Hey, Emily, first of all, it's so nice to actually see you. Emily and I have been we talk on the phone every few days, but we hardly ever get to see each other. And it's so nice to see you. Look wonderful. Good.
Likewise, your hair is very long.
I just cut it last week.
Oh, really? No, it's so much longer than last time I saw you.
It was down to my toes. I hadn't cut it all of COVID, so I was very excited to finally get it done. But anyway, hi everybody. So excited to be here. I am the author of 40 books. I started off writing for adults, and then I moved into writing YA, and now I mostly write younger books. So I mostly write now the Whatever After books and the Upside Down Magic books with Emily. I also still write a YA, but probably every couple of years, I'll scratch the itch to write for teenagers, and then I'll go back to middle grade, and then I'll be like, I miss writing for older kids, and then go back to them. So I jump around a lot.
Yeah, and I jump around as well. I write picture books. I've written 18 picture books, including A Greyhound, a Groundhog, and All of a Kind Family Hanukkah. Those are the most recent. And middle grade, including Toys Go Out and Brave Red Smart Frog, which Amanda mentioned. And then the YA that Amanda also mentioned. So just to be clear, my picture books and my middle grade are published under my legal name, which is Emily Jenkins. And all of my stuff for young adults is published under E. Lockhart.
And together we wrote 9 books. We wrote along with Lauren Markle. 9 books.
Lauren, we cannot take credit without Lauren.
Yeah, and Lauren too. So we started and we wrote How to Be Bad, which was for YA. We wrote that together, and then we loved working together so much that we ended up doing Upside Down Magic with Scholastic, and there are 8 books in that series too. So I thought I would start a little bit and tell you guys about my background and how I got to be here talking to you guys today. So I grew up in Montreal, Canada. I always knew I wanted to write. I started writing I think I was probably 7 or 8. I was scribbling stories, fractured fairy tales, stories about my sister, everything. I knew I wanted to write, but I thought that I would never be able to become a writer so young. So I decided to get a job in publishing. And I moved to Toronto, which is the center of Canadian publishing. And I got a job at Harlequin Romances, the very glamorous Harlequin Romances, with Fabio on the cover of all the books. And I worked in the marketing department and I loved it. And while I was there, they were looking to publish books in the chick lit vein, kind of Bridget Jones' Diary. Sex and the City was really popular back then. And I thought, oh, I can do this. I was 23 at the time. I wanted to write my version of Bridget Jones' Diary and Sex and the City. So I started writing about all the bad dates that I went on, pretty much. And that was my first novel, Milk Run, and it got published pretty quickly. And that's how I became a published novelist. And then I always knew I wanted to write YA. So once I'd been published, then I moved into writing Bras and Broomsticks, which is the first book in the Magic and Manhattan series. And I've pretty much continued to write for teens and middle grade readers since then. Emily, what's your backstory?
Well, I grew up in a commune in Massachusetts with my mother, and my parents were divorced. My father is a playwright. So growing up in the back of the theater, watching him work on plays, watching the director work on the shows, that was how I spent a lot of my summer vacations. And then when I finished college, I got a PhD in English literature, specifically in 19th century British novel, which you actually will see all throughout my books once you start looking for it. But I was miserable in this PhD program, and I started writing fiction as a way to escape my dissertation, and there was no going back.
Well, I'm glad because then I got to meet you. I'm going to tell you everyone how Emily and I met. And Emily, you know what? When we talked about it, we said we met on MySpace, but that's not how we met. The way that Emily and I met was because I got an issue of Publishers Weekly, and I had a new YA book coming out, Bras and Broomsticks, and it got a nice review in it. But when I read through Publishers Weekly, Emily had 2 books coming out, one under E. Lockhart and one under Emily Jenkins, with 2 starred reviews in it, because Emily gets all the starred reviews. And I read this and I said, oh my goodness, how does one person get 2 starred reviews in one issue? And so I looked up your email address online and I emailed you off of your website, I think.
That is true.
Tell you this. And then we started becoming friends. And at this time, YA was really just beginning to grow. I think Sister of the Traveling Pants had just come out, Gossip Girl was taking off, and there were a lot of YA writers in New York City. And David Levitt then and I, who wrote Boy Meets Boy, and I'm blanking on all of his other books that have become movies.
Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist, Dasha and Lily's Book of Dares. He won the Wilder Award. They all know who David is.
Yeah, but you know, okay. So David and I decided that we would start a teen author drinks night in New York City, so all the YA authors could meet each other. So Emily came to that. Emily was on the guest list. It was an amazing guest list, including I think Amber Shares and Gordon Corman, and it was all of us who were writing at the time, and John Green as well. And so we all met up, and that's how Emily and I met. And then the way that we started writing together is that we ended up, I think, John said to me, you should go on MySpace. MySpace is amazing. There's so many teenagers. There was this new social network way back when. And we started a group called Teen Lit on MySpace. And all of us writers started commenting on it and writing to each other. And then I'm trying to remember exactly how this happened, but Lauren said she loved David's book that he had written with Rachel, right, Emily?
Chicken Nora's Internet Playlist.
Right, and said, I wish I could write books with other people. And Emily said, I'll write a book with you. And I jumped in and said, don't forget about me. I want to write a book with you guys too. And so we took it offline, and the three of us decided to write How to Be Bad together. And that's how we became collaborators.
Yes, absolutely. The amazing thing that happened, though, that I feel like you left out of that story was we had met face-to-face briefly, but then like all of this stuff was happening online, and we had corresponded, and then, then we decided to write a book together. And I can't remember if we'd sold it or not, but I went to Teen Author Drinks Night, which was happening at this point once a month in this very groovy kind of East Village bar. And we would get in there early before like all the other hipsters came, and we would be a little nerdier, but there was a sort of lovely scene, and it would happen every month. And I went to Teen Author Drink Night, and Sarah was sitting there on a bar stool talking to somebody or other. And I came up and I was like, hello. And she was like, who are you? And I was like, it's Emily, we're writing a book together. And she did the best. This is the thing you should learn from, if you take away nothing from this entire keynote, take away this. When you haven't recognized somebody that like you might be writing a book with or something like that, that you should really recognize, you say the following, which is what Sarah said to me. You're so much better looking than I remembered. And I was like, now I love you. I've completely forgiven you for not remembering who I am. So anyway, it's a good tip for the social interactions. Next time we're all live at a conference together.
There's no way I said who are you?
Numerous times.
There's no way I said, who are you? I probably said, hi, I'm Sarah. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, maybe. Okay.
But, I mean, when you start to work with someone, on email so often, or were there texts back then? There were texts back then. When you start to email and you don't see them face to face, as is the world now, sometimes it's hard to remember what the person looks like in real life. Hopefully we won't forget everyone what they look like. Hopefully I won't run into you now, Emily, and be like, hi, I'm Sarah. Nice to meet you. All right, let's talk about books, okay? And let's start at the beginning. So you, Emily, have written tons of picture books. Can you talk a little bit about your picture books?
Well, picture books are really a deep love of mine. I mean, that's how I first fell in love with books. And I've always been really interested in the relationship between image and text. To me, I just written my first graphic novel. It comes out in September. It's called Whistle.
Awesome.
DC Comics superhero. But I mentioned that because the graphic novel as a form has a lot in common with the picture book as a form, because there's this counterpoint between image and text, and you can use the images to tell a different story than the text tells, or to deepen it, or to surprise the reader, or to have kind of a contrast. And to me, that's like super exciting dynamic. I find it super fascinating. But I really come at picture books with the sort of mindset about like the emotional lives of the very young. And I like tapping into like, what does it feel like to be very small and to have very big feelings? So like I have a book called Tiger and Badger, which is illustrated by Marie-Louise Gay, which is about a tiger and a badger who basically have a really, really terrible play date. They're basically children, but as Marie-Louise Gay draws them, they're this tiger and this badger, and they live in this sort of wonderful fantasy land. But the point is they're best friends and they can't get along, and they just quarrel all day, and they have to figure out how to like make it up and reaffirm their friendship. And that came out of, something that completely happened when I had a 3-year-old, right? I always try to write kind of from that respect for the emotional experience of the kid. Like All of a Kind Family Hanukkah is the same type of thing. That's a historical book. It's based on these really famous Sidney Taylor novels that I'm sure all of you librarians know. They were published in the 60s, and they were the first Jewish books to reach the mainstream, to reach a non-Jewish audience. And I grew up with them, and I was invited to write a story using Sidney Taylor's characters. So in so many ways, it's totally different from Tiger and Badger, but it's really about Gertie, the youngest in this family of 5 girls, and how terrible it feels when everyone is preparing for Hanukkah and cooking and making latkes with hot oil and sharp knives and things like that, and Gertie is not allowed to cook. And so she feels left out, and she wants to be big, and she wants to feel important on this holiday. So to me, I'm almost always starting from some kind of big emotion experienced by a little person.
I love that book. I love all of your picture books, and I've read them all to my daughters, and they love them too. And also, you did such a great job. I don't know if I told you this, but when you came and talked to my kids' school virtually, Emily spoke at my kids' school virtually last month. And my little one, Annabelle, loved it so much. And she came home wanting to reread all of your books again. It was a really good job.
Well, but Annabelle also had a crit, because when I do a school visit for, first and second graders, I very often start by reading A Greyhound, a Groundhog, because it is the shortest book ever. It's the shortest. It's very, very short. And I can kind of win over a bunch of kids by reading them a story, and you still have time for an assembly, basically. So I do that, and I project the books on the screen, the images on the screen, which are by Chris Applehans. So I did that, and then I have a way that I always talk through the book with the kids, and we analyze it actually. But Annabelle came home and said to Sarah, "You should tell Emily something. I have something to say." And I said, and Sarah conveyed this to me, and I was like, "What was it?" And do you want to tell them what?
Yeah, Annabelle said, "You should tell Emily that she should not read the entire book to the school, because then they won't buy it, because they've already heard it." So my daughter's the marketer, just like me. We're thinking about sales, Emily.
No, I don't care about sales. I just care about books and children.
I care about both.
But it was amazing that Annabelle had that crit,
She did.
Emily, you're giving too much away for free.
Well, next time I would like to be there and see you do the presentation in person, because that would be really fun.
Well, I missed you. I mean, I don't know if people know, but we do a lot of school visits together, and have done for the Upside Down Magic series, which we'll give you a bit of a spiel about later. But we both, we love going to schools together, and we've gone into schools with Lauren as well, and just really revving kids up about Upside Down Magic as a threesome is glorious fun. We're going to shift gears now and talk a little bit about young adult. Yeah.
Yes.
You, Sarah, have written 8 young adult novels, all of which I would characterize as hilarious female comedies, female driven and feminist comedies. And some of them are really very high concept as well. Lots of sort of pyrotechnics, I would say. But tell us about the latest one, A Boy and a Girl in a Little Canoe.
Well, the latest one is set at this one is actually less high concept. It's funny because this was a little quieter. It was based on a summer experience that I had. It's called Just a Boy and a Girl in a Little Canoe, and it's set at sleepaway camp. And it's definitely for the older kids. It's 14 and up. And it's about a girl who, is kind of lost, and she ends up going back to the summer camp where she went as a kid, and she was bullied there as a kid, and she goes back there because she doesn't have a job, and her boyfriend has abandoned her to go traveling in Europe, and she ends up back at this camp, and she ends up finding herself again at camp, and she finds also a new guy at camp, and there's a bit of a, I have a boyfriend, but at the same time, I'm attracted to this other guy. What do I do? I'm a teenager, and it's all about her discovering herself and a little bit her sexuality, and it was really fun to write. And I went to camp for 10 summers. I was there for sleepaway camp. I was there as a camper for 9 years, and then counselor for 2, and section head. I'm all about camp. My kids go to camp, and just going back and rediscovering myself through all my camp memories was really a lot of fun for me to do.
Well, I think it's also, my elder daughter, who also, hard, very serious camper, read that book last summer when she couldn't go to camp, and she loved it so much. It was like the perfect summer read because it was so joyful and fun, and it captured like not just all the hijinks and ridiculous things that happen at camp, although it has a lot of that, but also just like what camp meet to people who love camp and it's their first experience, like separating from their family of origin and creating a new identity for themselves. They really grow at camp, and they really change and figure themselves out. And I think it really replicates that experience for people. And, that's a
no, I totally agree. I tried so hard to capture it, and that I was proud of myself when I thought like by the end of the book, I really did capture that world. And it's such a specific world that I was very pleased that I was able to do that, because it's scary when you're writing a world, especially that when it's a real world. So, when Magic in Manhattan or whatever, when I'm making up worlds, I don't feel a responsibility to get it as right. But when I'm recreating something that I want to get perfectly, I feel more of a responsibility. So I was glad I was able to do that. And it was something that I've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
Write that book.
My favorite, I want you to talk about this book a little bit. My favorite of your YA books is Don't Even Think About It, which I'm going to let you explain, but it is, I think basically people who are teaching creative writing should assign this book, because the way that you do the narration is so unusual and is so challenging, and you pull it off, and it was very exciting. I got to read it in draft form and kibitz on it. But yeah, tell people what it's about.
It's about a group of high school sophomores who all get telepathy from their flu shots, which seems now especially fascinating that I wrote this. But so there's something wrong. There's something in one of their flu shots for one classroom, and they can all suddenly.
It's not an anti-vax situation.
No, it is not an anti. Why is it anti-vax? I want to be able to read people's minds.
Right. Anyway, vaccine gives you power. Yeah,
exactly. So they all are able to read each other's minds, because I was just fascinated with the idea that there's tons of stuff about being able to read other people's minds, but then what if people can also read yours? So I'd like the idea of playing with both of those, that you're all a hive basically. And so what I did when I wrote it is I wrote it in first person plural. So the whole book is written in we, because I felt that's what it was. They are a hive. They are no longer an I, they are a we. And it was really hard to do something, but I've always been interested in, playing with tone. I remember I wrote a short story that was all in second person, all in you. I had other adult books that I played with in second person too. I've always been interested in playing with the narrative form and mixing things up a little bit, writing books and letters, things like that. I know, Emily, you have too. We have that in common, right?
Yeah. I love reading it. I love writing it. A lot of my more recent books, and even my older books, have some kind of extreme narration choice. The Boyfriendless series has footnotes, and there's a surprising number of young adult novels that have footnotes, and you don't always remember that the books had footnotes when you remember the story. But like Green's An Abundance of Catherines has footnotes, and Daniel Ehrenhaft wrote a book with footnotes, and I think Adele Griffin has a book with footnotes. Anyway, the Boyfriendless series has footnotes, but Genuine Fraud is told, which is a thriller that came out 2 years ago, is a thriller that's told backwards. It starts with chapter, I can't remember what chapter, but let's call it chapter 20, and goes backwards to chapter 1. So you're seeing sort of the story of this con artist and her infiltration of this one family, but you see it backwards. And Again, which just came out in paperback today, takes place in
Yay!
paperback. It takes place in multiple universes, so it's a love story with a twist. And you watch this love story unfold, not in one universe, but in multiple universes. So I love that kind of challenge, really, to say, I'm going to write in this sort of form that I have never written in before and see where it takes me.
I wrote a book with sliding multiple universes too. You know, that me versus
Oh
me.
yeah, yes, I've read that.
It's
an
not
adult
so in
novel.
print, but I always love that idea. The difference, what I loved about yours was how they didn't know the other ones were happening at the same time.
Right, and in yours, she does know.
She
right?
does. She like wakes up in one world and then goes back to the
You
other.
forgot about Give Me a Call.
Oh yeah. Oh
That's
yeah.
also in multiple universes.
Yes. And Give Me a Call, a high school senior drops her cell phone into a fountain and then can call her younger self. And so she calls her younger self and speaks to her freshman self and gets the freshman self does things differently, and the world changes in her senior world. So I alternate, I go back and forth between both their perspectives throughout the whole book, which is really complicated but fun to do.
It's really, really fun. So I feel like does somebody want to write a dissertation about multiple universes in Lockhart and Malinowski? I feel like, you could go there. Okay, so we should talk about How to Be Bad a little bit, because that's the book we wrote together.
Not multiple universes, but 3 alternating first-person perspectives. So what we did was when we decided to write it, we decided to have 3 characters. We would each have our own voice and each be in charge of one character. So Lauren decided to start it, and she wrote the first character in the first chapter. And we had no idea what was happening. I think we just decided we were going to set it on a road trip in Florida. We were going to start it off in a Waffle House. Lauren wrote one character, one chapter, and then sent it to Emily, and then Emily had to go from there, right? And then
pretty much, yeah. We just, and then we had a week to go. Like you had to deliver your chapter. You were on deadline. Right. So you just had to receive the chapter, read it, and go as fast as you could to the end of the chapter. And you were supposed to sort of give the person a cliffhanger or a sort of fun something at the end of your chapter for them, the next person, to kind of go on with. So it was like a writing exercise, basically, that we just developed into a novel.
I think that at the end of your chapter, suddenly there was like a guy who showed up, and suddenly I had to figure out what to do with this attractive guy that was suddenly in the book and what would happen with him. And then by the end of my chapter, I think I threw a hurricane at somebody else.
There was a lot of stuff like that.
Just to amuse each other. So that's how we wrote How to Be Bad. So we just did, and then I think we wrote the first half, and then we outlined the rest because we wanted to figure out where we were going. And then we continued on, and then we went back and revised everything. But we were all ultimately in charge of our own characters and our own voice. But when we worked on Upside Down Magic, we did it a little differently. We decided that instead of having multiple characters, we would have one voice. And we would make the whole book sound together. Do we want to talk about Upside Down Magic first, and we talk about like how we go about doing it? So I'll explain a little bit about Upside Down Magic. Yeah. So in Upside Down Magic, everyone gets magical powers when they turn 10 years old. That's this world. And there are 5 types of magic that kids get. They can become flyers, which means they have flying magic. Flickers is invisibility magic. Flares is fire magic. Fuzzies is being able to communicate to animals, maybe call over a unicorn or something like that. And Fluxers is being able to turn into different animals. Now, Nori, our main character, is a Fluxer, but while most Fluxers start with being able to turn into, say, a kitten, that's their beginner animal, Nori's magic is a little bit upside down, which means it's a little bit wonky. So when she turns into a kitten, instead of just turning into a kitten, she turns into a kitten with a little bit of goat. So she becomes a coat. Or a kitten with a little bit of dragon. So she becomes a Dritten. So if you look at if you've seen the covers for Upside Down Magic, you'll see a Dritten dragon kitten on there. And she ends up going to a new class, an experimental class with kids who also have Upside Down Magic. And she makes friends with all these amazing other kids who have Upside Down Magic too, like a boy who has freezing magic instead of fire magic, another boy who turns into a rock and can't turn back, and a girl who tries to flare but instead makes it rain, but only indoors. And she ends up learning that even though her magic is different from other people's, that doesn't make her any less magical. And there are 8 books in this series, plus a movie on the Disney Plus that aired on Disney Channel last summer.
So Lauren Myracle is, of course, a mammoth part of this book, and she's missing from this conversation. We always say that what Lauren does, among other things, but is she adds the sparkle. She is the sparkle, and I want to give her full credit for all the sparkly bits. She really is amazing. But I think it might be interesting for people to kind of know that, even though we're all working together, we come at kind of thinking about upside down magic and at the collaborative process from different angles. And one thing we get asked a lot when we come into schools is, about, so many kids are doing group projects, and this is one of the big challenges my kids have faced, and I'm sure the students you work with face it as well on group projects. So how is it that we have done these 8 books together, as a group project? And Sarah, do you want to explain that just a little bit?
Sure.
And then
so in terms of the way that we collaborate, well, we've worked in different ways. We've tried different things, but in general, we all brainstorm together. And then I'm in charge of the outline. So I break down the story as to what is going to happen chapter by chapter. And then, because I like thinking of things in terms of set pieces and pace, and I just enjoy that part of the process. And then we send the outline to Lauren, and Lauren does the first draft. And then we send it to Emily, and Emily does the revision. And then we all read it over together. And what I find interesting is that when I ask kids at school, if you could either be the outliner, the first draft, or the reviser, people who raise their hand for one specific part always think that that's the best one and are shocked when a lot of the class doesn't agree. So what makes us work together so well is that we all have areas that we love the most. And that when people are collaborating, I always say, well, what do you love to do? And that should be, what do you want to contribute? You don't want to ever force someone to do something that they're not passionate about. So I find it really helps for everyone to have a job and to own it too. And then I also always, for the kids, throw in illustrate the cover, because while we don't illustrate the cover, Scholastic has someone who does it. You'll also get a large chunk of kids who are more than happy to skip the writing part and just to do the cover or the illustrations.
right, yeah, I think that idea that you have a power or a superpower or a couple powers, and those are the ones that you bring to the group, and that are your assets, and to play to those, to use those, to choose the thing that you care about and that you're good at, and that's what makes the team work. I was also going to say that I think one thing that really is interesting that happens in the first drafting and in the revision, as we kind of really get into the meat of the book, is that for me, the heart of upside down magic is usually the emotional lives of the kids, and the way the magic intersects with their emotional lives. So like Sarah told you, that Nori, the heroine of upside down magic, keeps turning into these upside down animals, these mixed up animals like the Dritten. But what really makes it work for me is that she turns into these animals because of something about her own emotional state, her emotional situation. So for example, when her father is not a very sympathetic dad, he doesn't really understand her wonky magic. And at one point early on in the first book, Nori turns into a kitten mixed with a beaver. And the beaver has it's a bitten. And the beaver has a lot of chewing urges, and so she ends up waddling upstairs in her bitten form and chewing through all the books in her father's library and chewing the legs off of his desk table, and then eventually taking all those papers into the guest bathroom and using them as a litter box. And so and making a beaver dam as well. So the beaver dam / litter box is like, this is kind of what she maybe needs to tell her father, right? So I love the way that the magic intersects with the emotional challenges that the kids are going through.
Yeah, no, you're always very good at that. Versus I'm much more interested always in the big set pieces and
Yes.
throwing as much conflict. And when you work with other people, you get to know what they do, what they shy away from. And I'm always like, more conflict. You know, the villain has to come head to head. You know, with the hero, you have to have them fighting. You have to throw them together. So I'm all about throwing as many problems. I will put them in the biggest issue as possible and let the characters work their way out. That's what I think the readers want. So we all come to it with specific things that we're looking for, that we know that we want out of the books that we read.
Yeah, you're very good with the escalation. Like you always get it to escalate further than I ever would have had it escalate.
Push them to the brink, throw them off a cliff.
We do not have so very much more time. So I think we should talk a little bit about the movie, and then we have some sort of quickie questions we can ask each other to kind of keep everybody awake, and we can also check the questions in the chat. So if you have questions, you can put them in the YouTube comments, and Amanda will send them to us in the chat and we can see them. But Sarah, do you want to tell them about the movie?
Yeah, the movie was really fun. It was so much fun. I've been, you know, actually, I want to say 30 or 40 books. I just blanked on how many, but a lot of books. And I've never had a movie. So this was my first movie. And it was so much fun. We got to go to set, which it filmed in Vancouver and in Vancouver Island. So it was just amazing to see what they did with it. Like to see things that, you know, characters that we had come up with, and this world in real life was so much. We had cute little director's chairs that Emily and I got to sit in. It was just such a wild trip. They definitely changed some stuff from the book, and we knew that going in a lot. Just a couple of things that they couldn't keep all the main Upside Down Magic kids, so they only had 4 Upside Down Magic kids instead of 8. And like Elliot was in it, but Elliot, instead of being a freezer, he was he was an upside down flare that was a smoker instead. Like smoke came out of stuff, and we found out that the reason that was because freezing magic was too expensive on screen, so they ended up using smoke. Like little things like that, you don't really know what they're going to do and why. Nori was exactly the way that we imagined her. It was like she jumped off the page and was this light of awesomeness, and we were very, very thrilled to see her. The other biggest difference with the movie, if you read the books and see the movie, which is a great thing to do in class too, is that our books are all set in public school, because when Nori doesn't get into Sage Academy, the fancy boarding school, but in the movie they decided to base the movie at Sage instead, and Upside Down Magic be a special class within Sage Academy. So that was a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, I think ideologically it's super different, but they still managed, I think, to hold on to like the spirit of inclusivity and self-acceptance that we hope the books have. I think the Disney movie really does still have that same spirit, just set at like super fancy magic school.
Right.
Yeah. It looks really pretty.
So pretty. Yeah. We had a lot of fun.
Okay, let's do some sort of quick back and forth. I have one more question I want to ask you that maybe needs a longer answer.
Yes.
Which is one overlap with our work that we haven't talked about is fairy tales. I wrote this book, Brave Red Smart Frog, which is a collection of Western fairy tales that I retold, super famous and some more obscure fairy tales, 7 fairy tales. They get used in classrooms a lot. And you've written this huge whatever after series. I can't imagine there's a librarian in this room that hasn't encountered them, but do you want to just explain basically what they are, and then we can talk about the overlap a little bit in fairy tales?
For sure. So in Whatever After, Abby and her brother Jonah fall into different fairy tales, mess them up by accident normally, and then have to find new happy endings for the characters. So for example, in the first book, they fall into the story, they get sucked through the magic mirror in their basement and end up in the story of Snow White. They don't realize they're in the story of Snow White until they accidentally stop this girl with dark hair and pale skin before she eats an apple by accident. And once they do, they realize that she's not going to die, and if she doesn't die, she can't be brought back to life by the prince, and then she'll never get her happy ending. Now, the spirit of this series is that Abby and Jonah help these princesses find more empowered endings. Yes, sometimes they end up with a guy if he's a good guy, and sometimes they end up with a bakery or another type of career or job. They find their true calling, which is not always about the prince. That's really the heart of the series. And in each book, they fall into a different fairy tale. So they can definitely be read as individuals. I mean, if someone wants to read them straight through, I totally get that. But a lot of kids just pick their favorite fairy tale and read that one instead. And there's 15 books in the series so far. I'm writing the 15th one right now, and 2 special editions where they fall into books instead of fairy tales.
Oh yeah, that was one of our questions in the chat.
Okay.
When is the next Whatever After coming?
The next Whatever After is Just Dance. And if anyone's on Instagram, you can find me on Instagram under my name. And I just posted the cover for Just Dance 2 days ago, and it is super adorable. It's 12 dancing Abbeys. It's 12. Abby and Jenna fall into the story of 12 dancing princesses, which is one of my favorite stories growing up. Apparently, I made my mom read that to me over and over and over again. So I'm very excited to work on that one, and I'm almost finished with the second draft of that book, and will hopefully be sending it back to my editor this Friday. Or I'm already really late, but it is coming soon. Promise, Amy, if you're on here.
Awesome.
What about you? Yeah.
Did you grow up with fairy tales? Do you have like a long history with them? I mean, were you, besides 12 Dancing Princesses, like what was the fairy tales that you read when you were little?
I love the fairy tales, but also I love them, but I always kind of like hated the endings. They were all about princesses getting saved by princes. So, and when I started reading them to my daughters, it was the same thing. I love the stories, but I really wish they had different endings. So that really inspired me to change them and fracture them, for a new generation of girls to have different role models. They don't have to dream about being saved. They want to save the world themselves. So I've always loved them.
Right. I found that with Brave Red Smart Frog, I was more faithful to the stories. Okay. I mean, I'm just as if I was telling the story to, a kid that I'm fond of. But I still was searching for ways to bring like my more modern sensibility to, the morals of the stories or the endings of the stories, without, unpacking it and putting it back together in a new way, which is what you do. So I think we did an event once a long time ago where we did 2 different versions of Snow White, and we kind of talked them through and read bits of them, read parallel scenes, and it was really interesting.
I still can remember your Little Red Riding version, because you took it from the
My Little Red Riding Hood is very wolf focused. Yeah. It has a lot of sympathy for the devil, so to speak.
No, I liked it. I think, when I ended up doing the Little Red Riding Hood for mine, that one definitely inspired me, and I ended up making the wolf a lot more sympathetic, as I, stole ideas from you. I hope that's okay.
All good. Yes. Okay. So we could go to the chat questions now, or we could go to our lightning round. What do you think?
Lightning.
Lightning? Okay. All right. Because we have a few in the chat, but we don't have too much longer. Okay. Very quick. Are you starting or am I starting?
Okay. I'm just going to ask you, and then you'll ask me ones. Okay. So I won't answer mine, and I'll just ask you mine. Okay.
I'm not sure I understand, but let's go.
Okay. Favorite snack?
Cheese nips.
Fill in the blank. I have always wanted to learn how to blank.
Oh, I think that's too dirty for this audience.
Okay, fill in the blank. When I was a kid, I was very afraid of.
Oh, having one of my parents being replaced by a pod person.
Oh, that is scary. Okay, I am still very afraid of.
Spiders.
Me too. Superpower you wish you had.
I just wrote a superhero comic. She has canine superpowers, can talk to dogs and command an army of dogs.
Fun. When does it come out again?
September. It's called Whistle. Perfect.
And what are you reading right now?
Oh, I'm reading Nancy Mitford. Have you ever read Nancy Mitford?
Oh.
The Pursuit of Love. It is so, I can't quite tell you about the plot, but the charm is, she's one of the most charming writers I've ever read. Go. Oh, are we switching over? Okay, Sarah, what is your favorite current TV show?
I'm watching Panic right now, and I really like it.
Panic, from the novel by Lauren Oliver? Amazing.
It's fun.
What is your favorite candy bar?
caramel. It's a Canadian chocolate bar because I'm Canadian, so I still like to eat all my. It has caramel inside and little chocolate squares. And in Canada, it says the commercial is, how do you get the caramel inside the caramel bar? It's a whole thing. It's good. Trust me.
Do you ever play video games? And if so, what's your favorite?
I do not, but I used to love Tetris. I overdosed on Tetris and could see the things everywhere. So I don't play any games anymore.
Nothing on your phone?
No. No.
Okay. I don't know that we're friends anymore, but it's okay. Who is a really great YA author that you would recommend? No. Somebody else.
Okay, fine. Julie Buxbaum.
Okay, yes, she is very fun.
Yes,
a vacation spot that you are dreaming of going to?
Hawaii, and I'm going in a few weeks, and I'm really excited because I've never been.
Oh, this is going to be a very hard one for you, I know. What is the best thing that you can cook?
I don't know how to cook. Luckily, my daughter's a baker, so oh my goodness, I don't even know what I can cook. I make chicken teriyaki.
Okay. And tell us a song you've been playing on repeat.
Steal My Sunshine. Again and again.
That's so old.
I don't know.
It's so good. It is really a good.
I loved it. So I downloaded it, and now I've been listening to it again and again. And Annabelle's like, "Mom, this song again." I love it. It's really fun. Highly recommend.
Yeah, they were a one-hit wonder, but amazing.
It's a good hit.
So, librarians, I really am excited to have gotten to hang out with you, even in this strange situation. I miss you. I know Sarah does too.
Yeah.
We wish we could go and have a cocktail or a coffee and hang around, and we hope that we can do that with you in person soon. You can find us online. Sarah, tell us where you can find your
Well, you can try to spell Sarah Malinovsky, which is hard, or you can just do sarahM.com. I'm Sarah M everywhere, but I'm mostly active on Instagram, to be honest. So
yeah,
it's probably a good place to find me. Where are you most active? You're very active.
Instagram and Twitter. Yeah, E. Lockhart or E. Lockhart Books. And yeah, I don't have social media under Emily Jenkins, so everything's under E. Lockhart, but I am not on TikTok, I'll tell you that.
I am.
Are you?
But everyone talks about your books on TikTok. We Were Liars became a huge sensation again because of TikTok, which is
I know, I'm a little bit famous on TikTok. It's true, without ever being on it. Anyway, I'm so grateful that we got this time with you all, and thank you for giving us your attention, and thank you for all the work you are doing with your students and your school communities, with the parents in your communities, all the ways that you are connecting books and young people. I know we're both incredibly grateful for it.
We are. Thank you so much. We couldn't do this without you guys, so thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much. All right, to all of our LibCampers that are still with us, we have a little bit of information to share with you. Wasn't that just the best? I love hearing from authors, and you can tell they're just great friends, and that was a lot of fun. Special shout out to Rose Brock for helping facilitate this keynote for us and help us get in touch with these ladies. We were super excited about that. A few things to share with you before you leave. Audrey has shared her screen with us. We want to share a few door prizes that we've gotten. We had some librarians working really hard. Shout out to Brandy Abbott, Charisse, grabbing and snagging some door prizes for us. So Stephanie Juster has won a Brain Pop swag set, including pins and stickers. If your name is called, we will be emailing you. Genially provided a 30% discount code for all participants. So if you want to snag one of those like pro accounts from Genially and get it at a discount, 30% discount there. We will be sharing this out with all participants as well. Ryan Cannon has won a 6-month classroom subscription to Bunsey. Maybe you attended the Bunsey session and had some really great ideas and wonderful things from Deb and Karina, yes, she was the one sharing that. I'm trying to mixing up all of my sessions here, but congratulations to Ryan. We have Deborah Scally, Ricky Smith, Cassie Joffrey, Tara Doty. I'm so sorry if I'm butchering your names. You all have won a literary quote book scarf, compliments of Cavendish Square. Again, we'll be sending you an email to get all the information to you about how you can get claim your door prize. Cynthia Hickerson and Julie Mosey, you've won free access to the Comic Draw app for iPad. Man, I'm super excited about that one. I have a little nephew that's going to be wanting to check that one out. Katie Acock, Gita Chetty, and Heather Lamb, you've won $150 gift certificates from Children's Plus. We will be getting those to you. If you're in this area, you can reach out to Yolanda. We'll be taking care of that for you as well. And Chelsea Jones, Terry Levy, and Rachel Cutting, you've won access to Green Screen app by Do Inc.
I love this app so much. I'm so excited for you guys.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Morny Brown, you've won a $50 gift card to Permabound. Start getting those book lists ready for the fall. Rachel DeJager, you've won a Sphero Bolt. We will be reaching out to you to get that to you. I love Spheros. They're a lot of fun.
The Bolt is way cool. Might have one in my house that we play with.
Yeah. Kelly Korneck, you've won a $25 iTunes gift card. Congratulations.
Yay.
Download a bunch of cool apps that have been talked about today. And the following attendees have won a S'more plushie: Brooke Woods, Angie Slate, Monica Walker, Amy Keller, Cindy B, Debbie Riggs, Debbie McComb, Tracy Bennett, TK Timmerman, and Mary McWilliams. I want one of those plushies.
More like plushie make me so happy.
Oh,
More. Thank you.
so fun.
I'll take one too.
So fun. Pam Gallo, Ruth Pincho, and Renee Nuri, you've won a 1-year subscription to Satori. Shout out to Sharice Johnson in Irving. If y'all are interested in that, she probably has some tips and tricks on how to use it. Jennifer Wilson, Elizabeth Brown, and Carrie Healy, you've won a 1-year subscription to a magazine of your choice. Compliments and magazine subscriptions, PTP. Again, we'll send you all the information in an email. And the big news of the day, please follow the bit.ly on your screen and complete your survey so that you can receive your certificate for PD credit today. We will send this link out to you as well, but we want you to have access to it to get that done quickly. We're going to have just, I think they have a week or so to get that submitted, get your survey turned in, and it will generate your certificate for you so that you can get your PD credit and your EQ hours for the summer.
Absolutely.
Audrey, this has been an amazing day. I'm super excited about how it went. I hope it went well. I hope you'll go back into Sched and kind of rate some of your sessions, fill out this survey, let us know how things went. We're always looking for ways to improve, but again, we could not have done this without you guys. All of our presenters, speakers, we appreciate you. We thank you. We love sharing our learning with other people and learning from other librarians across the state and even beyond. So thank you again. And
once we have all the recordings from our presenters, we'll follow up with you guys soon. Then we will email back out through Sched and Eventbrite so you can find out how to catch some of those recordings from probably, quite a few sessions that you'd love to be able to see and learn from after today ends. So thank you, Amanda, for all of your hard work. We appreciate you guys. It was awesome having all of you together in one virtual space today, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your summer.